We all love dragons. Who doesn't? Who isn't mesmerized by them? That's why when we look at Toothless's relationship with Hiccup, we cheer them on, in the back of our minds wishing that it could somehow be us, or being in complete awe of it all. We've heard the entire How to Train Your Dragon Saga from the perspective of Hiccup, the young Viking and the new chief to his village. But what if the tale had been told from the perspective of the Night Fury we've all come to know and love? It would make for quite an interesting backstory for us to see into the Toothless's life from a hatchling to when he meets Hiccup. His story would probably start from the inside of an egg and how he would perceive life. After he hatches, it would be revealed that he has siblings. We would see his parents, who look a little different than he does, and also much larger than we see him in How to Train Your Dragon. We would see from his perspective the loving, doting eyes of his mother, and what she would look like smiling down on him, and how powerful, masculine, and imposing his Night Fury father would look protecting them both. His father would fly high in the sky and with a huge lightning charge emit a disastrous plasma beam, something we've never seen Toothless do. This would be an interesting perspective because we finally would get to see the life of a Night Fury, how they lived, and how Toothless arrived at where we first saw him. Perhaps we would get a front row seat in watching Toothless and his brothers and sisters being nudged to the edge of their nest by their mother, who is encouraging them to fly. We would probably see the father stepping in to shove them quickly over the edge, him being the more firm hand, of course. It would be cool to see a further parallel to Hiccup's life when we realize that Toothless is actually the runt of the litter and the last one of his siblings to learn to fly. Then let's say eventually there's a disaster that attacks his home, where we can clearly see other Night Fury families. The interesting thing about this is that we would not only see Night Furies like Toothless's parents, but Light Furies, and Night Furies that have a drastically different color than that of Toothless. It would probably be even interesting to learn that Light Furies are not in fact a subspecies, but the original species of a Night Fury. As a result, Toothless would be considered rare, and maybe his father would be a Night Fury as well, while his mother is a Light Fury, and the rest of the dragons within their community are Light Furies or some deviation of them. Then eventually, either a natural disaster happens, or humans, or an imposing dragon becomes a threat to the home of the Night Furies. Toothless's father and mother do their best to defend their home and their children. While Toothless's father is fighting whatever the threat is, it is his mother that shelters her young with her wings, and then when the fight becomes too much and she has to defend her partner, she urges her young ones to fly away as fast as possible. If it's a dragon enemy, maybe it's a horde of a dangerous type of dragon that can cause explosions, and we would see Toothless and his brothers and sisters flying over the water away from their nest, while a wave of fire and debris in the form of an explosion is coming at them fast to swallow them up. The runt of the litter, being Toothless, would ironically fly past his brothers and sisters while they all get swallowed up by the fire, as Toothless barely makes it out alive. This would be a great parallel to Hiccup being the supposed weakest link of his community, who becomes the strongest and leads them to a better future. At a later time, Toothless may wake up and find himself surrounded by many different dragons, who seem to be migrating to an area. Eventually, he joins them and they become the only family or community he has left. This would explain why he was with those dragons in How to Train Your Dragon, the first movie. As they all go to a seemingly awesome utopia, they realize that something sinister is afoot and that they're not truly free. This is where the Red Death would come in, and we begin a backstory as to how the dragons ended up becoming enslaved to it. Maybe Toothless and many of the dragons led an attack on this thing, and it ended badly, which is why they're all beholden to its every whim. The perspective of our Night Fury would have a somber tone as they go to hunt to feed the Red Death to prevent it from leaving the mountain. At that moment, their best line of defense is to feed it so much that it becomes so big. This way, it will be too big to exit the mountain. It, however, would threaten that if it found a reason to be unhappy with the dragons, it would blast its way out and kill all of them. So, just like The Walking Dead and Negan's deal, the Red Death expected Toothless and the other dragons to uphold their end of the deal. Toothless is attacking Burke in desperation to try and get as much food as possible, or to be a distraction to allow the other dragons to grab food, and that's when he's shot down by who he later discovers to be Hiccup. That part of the story might end with Hiccup trying his best to kill the Night Fury, only to end with the camera focused on Hiccup's hand as he lowers the knife. And that's where the prequel of How to Train Your Dragon would end and start with Hiccup's perspective. That would be the best way to get all new content for How to Train Your Dragon, because although the perspective can be told from Toothless's point of view from the How to Train Your Dragon movie itself, we've already seen that movie, so it would be more interesting to see something or a spin-off of some sort be formed the way that the dragons would be the main focus instead of the Viking. Maybe it will be in the style of Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, where the dragons cannot speak, but everything is portrayed either via Toothless's narration or their body language and facial expressions. Would you guys want to see a movie like that? And do you think that it would be worthy of the big screen, or do you think it would only be worthy as a Netflix original? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. This has been Altiori. You ask, we answer.